So it's currently being used by an orthopedic surgeon on patients with osteoarthritis. And we're currently working on launching it at a second pilot in Nova Scotia. And so kind of all of these milestones have led us up to this point where we're now ready to move on to the next stage.
Welcome to NGBiLab, a podcast about innovators and disruptors who are creating the next generation of companies in Canadian life sciences. Hi, I'm Jim Wilson, and today's guest is Randa Mudathir, who is co-founder and CEO of NovaSonix Healthcare in London, Ontario. Randa and her team are transforming musculoskeletal imaging with a device called MSK NovaView. Now, this device converts standard ultrasound machines into real-time scanners that automatically capture full 3D images in seconds. The device is designed to work with any commercially available ultrasound machine, but in addition, onboard AI algorithms quantify disease biomarkers such as cartilage thickness and joint inflammation, and by capturing this data, they're able to deliver MRI-like images at a fraction of the cost. Ultimately, the work Randa and her team are doing will produce better clinical data and help eliminate long wait times for patients and clinicians. What makes this story particularly compelling is how it started. Randa was doing her master's degree at Western University in London, Ontario, and while the technology came out of the research she was doing, it was a pitch competition that changed everything. She and her team of 5 co-founders are running clinical pilots, raising their pre-seed round, and preparing to file with both Health Canada and the FDA. It's a great story, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Before we get to today's show, we'd like to remind you this podcast is part of the NGBi podcasts in support of Next Great Big Ideas, Canada's Life Sciences Summit. NGBi is an annual national networking event for Canada's life sciences community, and we invite you to attend. For details, please go to nextgreatbigideas.com. This episode of NGBiLab was recorded in February 2026. Randa, welcome to NGBiLab.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm happy to be here.
I am delighted that you are, and I'm looking forward to learning about your company. So this podcast is about the innovators and disruptors who are creating the next generation of companies in Canadian life sciences. And I think you're one of those companies. It's in a city that we're going to talk about in a moment that is doing some really cool stuff. So let's start with your elevator pitch. What is your elevator pitch for the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So at NovaSonix Healthcare, we've developed a portable compact attachment that you can attach to any commercially available ultrasound probe and convert it into a real-time 3-dimensional ultrasound scanner. And we're particularly tackling the problem of limited MRI access for patients with musculoskeletal diseases and injuries. Currently in Canada, patients with these diseases and injuries have to wait at least 89 days for a medically necessary MRI.
8 to 9 days or 89 days? Not like almost 90 days, 3 months.
Exactly. And
Wow.
These are just reported numbers that you find available in statistics online. But we've spoken to patients who waited a year, 2 years. Some patients have literally crossed the border over to the US to get an MRI done because they just couldn't get it at a reasonable time here in Canada. And so we recognized that clinical need, and we realized that there must be, a more accessible, affordable method to get MRI-like quality imaging at the point of care.
Thank you. My head's starting to spin. So who came up with the idea?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little background on kind of the inception of the company. So I started my master's in medical biophysics in 2022, and I was working in the labs of Dr. Aaron Fenster and Dr. Emily Lalone, who are actually one of our 2 co-founders. And Emily is a musculoskeletal researcher, so she's very interested in human biomechanics, and Aaron is a 3D ultrasound expert. quite literally his entire focus in his lab. And so they banded together to investigate developing some imaging technique that can detect early symptoms of osteoarthritis. Because currently the standard of care is to just capture X-ray imaging of patients' joints and then assessing their symptoms. And oftentimes X-ray doesn't really do a good job at capturing early symptoms of the disease. So once you begin seeing changes in the X-ray, it's a little bit too late. The disease will just continue progressing, and osteoarthritis currently has no cure. So Emily and Aaron worked with a previous student who is also one of our co-founders, Carla. So you'll recognize a theme here of how we all met. And they developed a 3D ultrasound scanner for scanning the hands and wrist, because Carla's research was focused on thumb osteoarthritis detection. And so when I came into graduate school, I was kind of carrying over Carla's project. And a year into my master's, I realized so many of the clinical collaborators that we were working with would constantly ask us, are you planning to commercialize this? I would love to have this in my practice. And so we stumbled upon a pitch competition that was looking for innovations in the bone and joint health space. And so I forwarded the email to Aaron and Emily, and I was like, are you guys interested in commercializing?
You want to start a company kind of thing?
I would love to embark on this, because we clearly have, a valuable technology with your clinical interest. And so we pitched at the competition, we ended up winning, and that's how we spun out NovaSonix Healthcare. Now, up until this point, we were focused on osteoarthritis detection. But the more customer discovery we did and the more physicians we pitched to, we realized that early osteoarthritis detection is part of a larger problem where physicians in the orthopedics, sports medicine, rheumatology space can't get their patients in a timely manner into the MRI. And so a ton of them were like, that's great, but I don't want to use it for osteoarthritis detection. I want to use it when a patient comes in and they have a torn tendon, and I want to be able to get a 3D view of their tendon to know the extent of the damage and whether they need surgery or if they just need physiotherapy. And so that's when we kind of decided to pivot our messaging a little bit and really tackle this problem of limited MRI access.
Hi, it's Jim. When we come back, Randa walks us through how the team came together and what it took to turn an idea in a university research lab into a company. Stay with us. I'm Jim Wilson, and you're listening to NGBiLab, Canada's life sciences startup podcast. Hi, it's Jim Wilson, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about the next Great Big Ideas Summit, which is coming this fall. If you are part of the Canadian life sciences community, NGBI is one of the key events you want to put in your calendar. The NGBI Summit is an independently organized, not-for-profit, national networking event that attracts innovators, investors, disruptors, academic entrepreneurs, industry suppliers, today's leaders, and startup founders from coast to coast who are quite likely many of tomorrow's industry leaders. The summit is an event that generates the kind of conversations that happen only when the right people are in the room. So if you are a member of the Canadian life sciences community, and frankly, even if you're not but you'd like to be, this event is for you, and we invite you to join us. For details on sponsorship and to purchase tickets, please go to nextgreatbigideas.com. Thanks so much. We look forward to having you join us. Let's get back to our conversation. Hey, welcome back. It's Jim Wilson, and my guest today is Randa Mudathir, co-founder and CEO of NovaSonix Healthcare in London, Ontario. So it started, if I understand correctly, and forgive me for putting it in this fashion, but as a school project, and it morphed into something that took on a life of its own. And maybe I should back up for a moment. You've got, 5 co-founders?
4 co-founders. So there's 5 of us in total, yes.
Okay. And who are they?
So the 2 I kind of mentioned are Dr. Aaron Fenster and Dr. Emily Lalone. So
Right.
Aaron, 3D ultrasound expert, but he's also a 4-time founder himself with one exit to GE Healthcare, which
Okay.
is really exciting to have him as part of a team. Emily's an experienced musculoskeletal researcher, so she's really been the person that's been leading all of our clinical trials to date. But aside from those 2, there's Carla, who's our clinical strategy lead. She's really where this, technology kind of started. And she's also currently a medical student at Dalhousie University. So she's been helping us a lot with clinical adoption and connecting us with interested physicians. And then we have our CTO, Megan, who's really our technical lead in iterating and refining our prototype, as well as gathering further clinical data to validate our technology.
And did you say earlier that Carla was the person who kind of started this ball rolling?
Exactly. Yeah. So she was the first to develop the hand and wrist scanner. And although our current prototype looks nothing like the prototype that she was working on, the idea of using 3D ultrasound technology for the detection of musculoskeletal diseases and injuries really started with her project.
And when you started your master's degree, they went, hey, you want to tackle this and see where you can take it?
That's exactly it. So Megan and I started our master's at the same exact time. And so that's kind of how all the 5 of us came together, is Megan and I were carrying forward Carla's project. And a year into our master's, we just stumbled upon this opportunity and realized that we have a technology that works quite well and deserves to be in practice and not just sitting at a lab bench.
So the competition that you decided to enter, what was that?
It was Western University's Bone and Joint Institute. They had a pitch competition specifically for bone and joint innovations.
And how many other companies were there? Do you recall?
So the finalists were 2 or 3 companies, if I recall.
Okay.
I don't know how many people actually applied, but those were the finalists.
Now, for those listeners who may not be aware, Western and London, Ontario is a global center of excellence for diagnostic imaging. And you and your team are located at the Robarts Research Institute on the campus of Western University, which, by the way, I did my undergraduate at. So nice to be speaking with a fellow graduate from Western. So you're still on campus, obviously, working at the Institute. How large is your team now?
So right now we have the 5 co-founders, but we're also contracting a mechanical engineer, a machinist, 2 software engineers, as well as a regulatory program manager. And aside from that, we also are consulting with a fractional quality management system manager.
And again, for those who may be listening and looking for the next step in their career, are you going to be hiring anytime soon for other positions?
So I'm glad you asked that question. I'll answer a little bit indirectly. So right now, we're currently raising our pre-seed raise. And so following the close of our pre-seed raise, we do have a few hires that we'd like to make, primarily in the software engineering side as well as go-to-market side. So if anyone's interested in our technology, just keep an eye out for those.
And we will have your contact information at the end of today's show. Your pre-seed raise, if you don't mind me asking, how much is it you're looking for?
We're raising 1.5 million Canadian.
And how's that going?
So we just opened our round this month, but so far the interest has been fantastic. We're just currently on the hunt for a lead investor. And so if anyone's listening to this call and you're interested in our company and our technology, we'd love to have a conversation.
So I'm wondering, things have happened quickly. Are you seeking Health Canada and FDA approval, or is that just too soon?
Yes. So that's primarily the reason why we're raising this current round, is to fund our regulatory pathway, because thus far we've been able to really iterate and refine our prototype to a prototype that we're quite happy with and we know fits in well into current clinical workflow, and physicians have given us positive feedback about it. We've already ran multiple clinical trials to validate the technology and compare the images we acquire using our 3D ultrasound system as well as MRI to make sure that the quality really matches up. And we've also been able to launch our device in an in-hospital pilot currently. So it's currently being used by an orthopedic surgeon on patients with osteoarthritis. And we're currently working on launching it at a second pilot in Nova Scotia. And so kind of all of these milestones have led us up to this point where we're now ready to move on to the next stage of filing for regulatory approvals. So we'll be filing for both Health Canada and an FDA 510K submission by the end of this year.
So I don't mean to oversimplify things, but I don't have a science background, so I need to dumb things down. The device that you have come up with, a medtech device, attaches to current ultrasound technology.
Yes.
And converts it from a 2 to a 3D image.
Correct.
How come nobody thought of this before?
So there are 3D ultrasound probes that exist in market currently, but they're not specialized for musculoskeletal imaging. So if anyone listening has ever had to go in for a ultrasound scan to look at their baby, for example, you'll notice that you can actually get a 3D image of your baby using ultrasound. But the ultrasound probes that are specialized for musculoskeletal imaging, unfortunately, up until this point, they're primarily 2D probes and not 3D probes. There's only like 3 to 5 ultrasound, 3D ultrasound probes, but they each have their limitations that I won't necessarily get into right now.
Hey, it's Jim again. When we come back, Randa talks about the size of the market opportunity, what the company needs to get to the next level, and the advice she would give to any researcher who is working on a technology that just might be the foundation for creating a startup. Stay tuned. I'm Jim Wilson, and you're listening to NGBiLab. If you're a new listener, we would like you to know one of the goals of this podcast is to shine a light on up-and-coming startups in Canadian life sciences and the people and stories behind them. We hope you like what we're doing, and if you do, we will greatly appreciate you telling your friends about us and promoting us on social. Please use the hashtags NGBI, NGBiLab, NGBI Podcasts, and NGBI Summit. Thanks for your help. By the way, if you're a startup founder who is working on a next-generation idea in Canadian life sciences, please reach out to us. My contact information is at the end of today's show, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much. Let's get back to our conversation. So did we just not have the technology prior to this to be able to take that next step, which you and your team have taken?
Yes. So as I mentioned, there are existing 3D ultrasound probes in market, but they're either really expensive or they're not specialized for musculoskeletal imaging. So we've just developed an affordable alternative to that, essentially.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of ultrasound devices there are in the world. So your market is potentially huge.
So globally, the total ultrasound market is around 10 billion. In North America, so between Canada and the US, it's 3.5 billion. But we're targeting the over 70,000 hospital departments and clinics across the US and Canada that perform diagnostic musculoskeletal ultrasound. So that brings our serviceable obtainable market, or the market that we can really capture, to around 330 million.
This is a game changer in the purest sense of the term. So you mentioned you're in the midst of a fundraising round. Other than money, what do you need to get to the next level? Like we talked money, we talked you're about to do some hires. Is there like an industry paradigm that needs to shift for people to say, you know what? Yes, we should be interested in this? Or are you getting pushback from the industry that you need to overcome?
So currently in Canada, we've had a decent amount of clinical validation and knowing that that clinical need is there. But one of the milestones that we're currently working towards is finding a U.S. clinical partner. And so again, just based off of going to various conferences in the U.S., we know that the clinical need is there, but we're really just looking for that champion in the U.S. that will be willing to lead a hospital pilot for us.
I'm thinking I'd love to invest in the company. Like the potential is just enormous. And you're riding this horse and just trying to stay on. You don't have an entrepreneurial background, but you've got that experience on your team.
Correct. Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, Aaron is a 4-time founder. This is his 4th medical imaging company, and he's already had one exit in the past to GE Healthcare. So for those listening who don't know, GE Healthcare is enormous, one of medical imaging pioneers amongst many other things that they specialize in. And so it's been really great having him on board and learning from his experience and background for sure.
So I'm guessing that at the team meetings, when discussions are had, you look to him and go, so what do you think?
A little double take of like, is this the right next move?
And how fortunate you are to have him on the team and the other co-founders.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, aside from the fact that he has his entrepreneurial background, he's also a 3D ultrasound expert. So this technology was born out of his research lab. And so he kind of brings not only the entrepreneurial background to the table, but also his technical expertise.
Let's turn the clock back 3-4 years. And could you have imagined the path that you followed and where you are today?
Since high school, I've had a clear career path in mind.
It has nothing to do with this.
Not even close. I was going to get my master's, I was going to get my PhD, I was going to get a postdoc position, and then finally get a faculty position as a professor at a university. That has always been my dream. Research has always been my passion, but I got into Aaron's lab as a graduate student and stumbled upon this technology, and it was a no-brainer to embark on this commercialization journey.
So having had that dream for so long, was it a difficult decision for you personally to make that pivot?
So one of the reasons why it wasn't difficult is not only was the technology really promising, but our founding team is a very passionate and supportive team. And so if I didn't have the co-founders that I currently have, it probably would have been a more difficult decision. But it really just comes down to the team and the supporting community that you have around you. We're very lucky in that front for sure.
So for those listeners who may be hearing what you have to say and are in a similar position to where you were 4 years ago, what advice would you give them?
This sounds incredibly probably cliche and not unique, but take the risk. You'd be surprised how much support you'll get initially, first of all, from the entrepreneurial ecosystem, whether it's you're in Toronto, you're in Kitchener-Waterloo, you're in London. If you have a technology that you know would be life-changing to patients and to current clinical care, take the risk and try to go down the commercialization path. It's not easy, but it's incredibly rewarding.
That is great advice. Thank you. My head is still spinning at what it is you're working on and the path that you have in front of you. And I am sure that there are going to be a lot of people interested, and I look forward to future announcements. Thank you so much for your time. This has been so much fun.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jim. I really enjoyed my time here on your podcast.
That was Randa Mudathir, who is co-founder and CEO of NovaSonix Healthcare in London, Ontario. To learn more about the work Randa and her team are doing, please go to NovaSonixHealthcare.com. That's NovaSonix. You can also follow Randa on social at Randa-Mudathir, Mudathir. If you'd like to learn about this podcast, please visit nextgreatbigideas.com. You can also follow us on social at NGBI Podcasts. For details on who I am, please visit jim-wilson.ca, and you can find information about my day job team at laboccupier.com. You can also follow me on social at laboccupier. This episode of NGBI Lab was researched by Xenia Pinto and edited by No Limit Marketing. If you'd like to get in touch, email is best. My address is jwilson@Leonard, that's LENNARD.com. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.